The afternoon sun was soft and warm when Sandra entered the quiet botanical garden. She came here whenever she needed peace because the gentle sound of leaves and slow-moving water always calmed her mind. She walked slowly through the narrow stone path, trying to settle the thoughts that had been bothering her all morning. She did not expect anything unusual to happen today. She only wanted a break from her own mind. She only wanted silence. But life often changes in the moments when we feel most certain. And as she turned the corner toward a small wooden bridge that crossed over a still pond, she froze where she stood. There was a man sitting alone on the bench near the bridge. His shoulders were relaxed, his posture was calm. He was looking at the pond like he was trying to understand something beyond the surface of the water. Even from far away, she recognized him. She had seen that quiet presence before. She had felt that peaceful energy many times in her life. There was no doubt, it was Keanu. Her heartbeat changed, not fast, not loud, just heavier. The kind of heaviness that comes when the past returns without warning. She had not seen him in years, not once, not even by chance, and yet here he was, sitting only a few steps away. It did not feel real. It felt like a moment created by something bigger than coincidence. She almost stepped back, unsure if she should approach him. But something inside her whispered that this moment was not accidental. She stood still for a moment, trying to understand her own feelings. She had moved on with life. She had learned new things, but some memories do not disappear. They wait quietly in the corners of the heart until something wakes them. As she slowly walked closer, Keanu sensed movement and turned his head. For a split second, his expression was blank because he did not expect to see anyone he knew. But the moment his eyes met hers, something soft appeared on his face. A gentle smile, not wide, not dramatic, just warm and sincere. A smile that carried understanding. A smile that carried acceptance. A smile that told her he remembered everything without needing to say anything. Sandra felt a strange mix of relief and fear. She could not understand why. She should have been happy. She should have felt comfortable. But there was something about his quiet smile that unlocked a part of her past she had kept closed for a long time. She wondered if she looked different to him. She wondered if he could see the changes she had gone through. She wondered if he could feel how nervous she suddenly was. She approached him slowly, unsure what to say first. Keanu was the one who spoke gently. "Hi, Sandra, it has been a long time." His voice was calm and steady, like he had been expecting her even though he clearly had not. He shifted slightly on the bench to make space for her, as if it was natural for her to sit beside him again after all these years. The small gesture held a quiet respect that made her feel seen. She sat next to him, leaving a comfortable distance that neither of them felt the need to remove. The pond in front of them was still. The leaves above them moved only slightly. The entire moment felt too peaceful for the emotions building inside her. For a while they did not talk. It was not an awkward silence. It was a silence filled with unsaid memories. It felt like both of them knew that their past was sitting between them, waiting to be acknowledged. Sandra finally took a slow breath because she could feel the weight inside her chest growing heavier with every passing second. "I did not expect to see you here," she said softly. Keanu nodded with a gentle expression. "I did not expect to be here either, but sometimes the right place appears without planning." His words were simple but meaningful. The kind of words that made Sandra feel understood even though she had not shared anything yet. She looked at him more carefully. He looked calm, thoughtful, and present. Nothing about him felt rushed. Nothing about him felt impatient. He was giving her the space to speak, and she knew it. But the moment she tried to speak, she felt a familiar ache rising inside her. The past had always been difficult for her to revisit. She had never explained what happened back then. She had avoided the topic for years because she did not know how to express the fear, confusion, and guilt she had felt. She thought time would erase it. She thought she would forget. But now, sitting beside him again, she realized the memory was still alive. Keanu noticed her hesitation. His eyes softened in the way they always had when he sensed something unspoken. He did not pressure her. Instead, he let the silence work gently around them so she could gather the strength to speak. After a long moment, Sandra looked down at her hands and said quietly, "Keanu, do you ever think about our past?" Her voice was steady but low. She did not look at him yet because she was afraid to see his reaction. She did not want disappointment. She did not want regret. She wanted honesty, but honesty can be painful. Keanu did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked at her with a calm expression. Not confused, not surprised, almost like he knew this question had been waiting to come out for many years. He took a slow breath and then nodded. The nod was small but full of meaning. It told her he remembered. It told her he cared. It told her he had carried those memories too. Sandra felt something loosen in her chest, but the relief did not last long because another wave of emotion rose behind it. There was something she had never said to him, something that had lived inside her for a long time, something she believed might change the way he looked at her. She had spent years thinking about that one night, the night she walked away without explaining anything, the night she felt overwhelmed and scared, the night she believed she had disappointed him. She thought he had forgotten about it. She thought he had moved on without thinking twice. She thought her disappearance did not matter as much as she imagined. But now, sitting next to him again, she realized she needed to know the truth. She needed to understand what he really felt back then. She needed to face the past she had avoided for too long. She took a slow breath and whispered, "There is something about that night that I never told you." Keanu did not move. He did not interrupt. He simply listened with the same gentle patience that had always made her feel safe. The air around them seemed to change. The pond became quieter. The breeze slowed down. Everything felt heavy with anticipation. The story was just beginning, but already the tension was strong enough to hold the viewer's attention. And Sandra finally prepared herself to reveal the moment that changed everything. The air felt heavier as Sandra tried to gather the courage to speak. The garden around them was calm, but inside her chest everything felt unsettled. She had kept the memory of that night hidden for so long that even now her heart tightened as she thought about it. She could feel Keanu watching her with patient eyes, giving her enough space to breathe, enough time to find her words. That small kindness alone made her feel more emotional than she expected. She looked at the pond for a moment, watching the reflection of sunlight move on the surface of the water. She needed that little distraction before facing the truth she had avoided for years. Finally, she spoke in a soft voice that trembled slightly. "That night, I left without telling you because I felt like I was not good enough," she said. Keanu did not interrupt. He stayed still, listening carefully. She had always admired how he never rushed moments like this. He allowed silence to exist when it needed to. He never tried to fill it with meaningless words. His presence alone made the moment feel safe. Sandra continued, "I was overwhelmed. I was tired. I was scared of everything, and I thought I had already caused too many problems. I felt like the best thing I could do was walk away before I disappointed you even more." Her voice softened again. "I did not want you to see me like that." Keanu slowly lowered his head, not out of sadness but out of understanding. He remembered that night very clearly. He remembered the confusion. He remembered wanting to help her but not knowing how. He remembered the way she left so suddenly, leaving him worried for the rest of the night. But he kept listening because he knew this moment meant everything to her. Sandra finally looked at him. There were no tears, but her eyes carried years of weight. "I thought you were better off without my problems. I thought I would make things harder for you, so I left. And I did not explain anything. I just disappeared." Keanu breathed in slowly. His expression was calm, but there was a deep softness in his eyes. "Sandra, why would you think you were a problem to me?" he asked gently. His question broke something inside her. She had asked herself the same question so many times over the years, but she still did not know the answer. The truth was simple. She had been afraid. Afraid of disappointing him, afraid of losing him, afraid of letting someone see her weakness. She looked down again, her fingers lightly touching each other. "Because I saw how strong you were, how calm you were, how you handled everything with so much balance, and I felt like I was the opposite of that. I felt like I was carrying too much. I thought I would slow you down." Keanu shook his head slowly. His voice remained gentle. "Sandra, strength does not mean a person never struggles. Strength also means standing beside someone when they cannot stand alone. You never slowed me down." She felt her throat tighten again, but she pushed herself to continue. "But I thought I did. I thought I ruined things. I thought you were disappointed." He turned slightly, wanting her to see his expression. "I was never disappointed in you," he said softly. "I was only worried." Those words hit her deeper than she expected. The idea that he had not been angry or annoyed but worried changed her entire memory of that night. But she also knew there was more he had not told her. Something in his silence felt meaningful. Something in his eyes suggested a truth she had never imagined. The suspense grew when he stopped speaking, as if he was thinking about something he had kept hidden for a long time. He looked at the pond, then back at her, then back at the water again. Sandra noticed the hesitation. She could feel that he wanted to say something but was unsure if this was the right moment. She whispered, "Keanu, what really happened after I left that night?" He turned his face toward her again. This time the gentle smile returned. It was soft and full of understanding, but the smile also carried something else. A secret, a memory, a truth she had never heard. He finally answered, "I did not let you walk away alone." Sandra blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" He spoke slowly, choosing each word with intention. "You walked out into the night. I saw how shaken you were. I knew something was wrong. I wanted to give you space because I knew you needed it. But I could not just sit there and pretend everything was fine, so I followed you." Sandra's heart stopped for a second as she absorbed his words. She remembered walking alone that night. She remembered thinking she was invisible, completely unnoticed. She remembered feeling like she had disappeared from everyone's world. But now she discovered she had not been alone at all. She asked quietly, "You followed me, why?" Keanu looked at her with the same calm expression he always used when speaking the truth. "To make sure you were safe. You were hurting, you were scared. I did not want to interrupt you. I did not want to push you, but I also could not leave you by yourself. I walked behind you the entire time, a few steps back, just enough so you would not feel pressured." Sandra felt her breath catch. She tried to imagine him walking behind her in the darkness, quietly watching over her without wanting credit or recognition. The thought overwhelmed her. She felt a small ache in her chest because she realized how deeply he had cared even when she believed she meant nothing. She whispered, "I never knew." "You were not supposed to know," he said gently. "You needed space to breathe. I wanted you to feel free, but I also wanted you to be safe." The moment became heavier as the truth settled between them. It was not dramatic. It was not loud. It was quiet and powerful. Sandra looked at him, trying to understand how he could carry such kindness without telling anyone for years. She felt something warm rise inside her chest, something she had pushed down for a long time. She did not know what to say. She did not know how to thank him. She did not know how to express the gratitude she felt for something she never knew happened. Keanu watched her reaction carefully. He knew she was trying to process everything. He waited patiently, allowing her to feel whatever she needed to feel. After a long moment, she finally spoke in a soft voice. "Keanu, that night was the moment I thought I had lost you forever. I thought you would walk away because I was too much to handle. But all this time, I never knew you stayed near." Keanu smiled again. It was the softest smile she had seen from him so far. "I never walked away," he said. "I only kept a quiet distance because that is what you needed." Her eyes filled with emotion at his words. It was strange how one truth could change the meaning of an entire memory. Everything she had believed for years suddenly shifted. She no longer saw that night as a moment of abandonment. She saw it as a moment of silent protection. The garden felt different now. The air felt warmer. The sunlight felt softer. Something inside her chest finally began to open, something she had locked away for a long time. She took a breath and whispered, "There is more I want to tell you, but I need a moment." Keanu nodded gently. "Take all the time you need, I am here." And for the first time in many years, Sandra felt truly understood. The air around them felt different now, as if the truth he shared had quietly changed the shape of the world between them. Sandra sat still, letting her thoughts settle like dust after a long storm. She felt lighter, but also more confused than before. It was strange to realize that the story she had told herself for years was not even close to what really happened. She always believed she had walked away alone. She always believed she had been a burden. But now she knew Keanu had been there the entire time, watching over her without expecting anything back. Sandra took a slow breath and looked at the pond again. The sunlight reflected in small broken lines across the surface, reminding her of how memories can look clear but still hold hidden pieces beneath. She felt the weight of years pressing against her heart, not painfully, but gently, as if urging her to speak the truth she had been afraid to touch. Keanu sat quietly beside her, giving her the space she needed. He did not push her to continue. He did not ask more questions. He simply stayed present, which was something he had always been good at. His presence had a way of making silence feel safe instead of uncomfortable. After a long moment, Sandra finally whispered, "There is something else about that night, something I never understood about myself." Keanu slowly turned his head to her, not with curiosity but with patience, waiting for her to open the door to the next part of her truth. She looked at her hands resting on her lap. I left because I felt like I did not belong. I thought everyone around me was stronger, calmer, and more confident than I was. I felt like I was behind everyone else. Her voice softened. I thought I would only hold people back. Keanu listened closely, his expression steady and warm. Everyone feels lost at times, he said gently. No one is as confident as they appear. Some people simply hide their fear better. She nodded slowly, but her heart still carried the old self-judgment. I felt like I needed to disappear. I thought the world would be better without me around that night. I did not want anyone to worry about me, but I did not know how wrong I was. He tilted his head slightly. You were not wrong for needing space. People need to step away sometimes, but you were wrong to believe you did not matter. Those words touched something deep inside her. She felt a warmth in her chest, the kind of warmth that comes when someone finally says the words you needed to hear long before you ever admitted it. She breathed out slowly. You know, after I left, I tried to convince myself that I made the right choice, but part of me kept wondering if you ever thought about me again. I wondered if you forgot me as easily as I believed I should forget myself. Keanu shook his head. I never forgot you, not then, not later, not at any point. The simplicity of his answer made it even more powerful. There was no dramatic tone, no forced emotion, just truth. The kind of truth that settled slowly inside her, warming the places she had kept cold for years. She looked at him in disbelief. You remembered me all this time. Of course, he replied in the same calm voice. You think people forget those they care about so easily, but it is not like that. Some connections do not disappear even when time passes. Sandra felt her throat tighten, not out of sadness, but out of realization. She had spent years convinced she meant nothing, when in reality she had been remembered with kindness. She had run from her own worth without knowing that someone had quietly held on to it for her. Keanu could see the emotions building inside her. He spoke gently, trying to support her without overwhelming her. Sandra, people break inside when they feel alone, but you were never truly alone. You just did not see the people who cared. She nodded slowly, taking in his words. The truth was painful, but it was also healing. She had to accept that her perception of the past had been shaped by fear, not reality. But inside her chest, another question started forming, a question she had never dared to ask before, one that carried heavy meaning, one that could change the way she saw him forever. She hesitated before speaking, unsure if she wanted the answer. But the moment felt right. The garden was quiet, the sunlight was soft, and Keanu's steady presence gave her the courage she needed. Keanu, she said softly, why did you care so much? Why did you follow me that night? Why did you keep me safe without saying anything? You had no reason to carry that responsibility. Keanu did not respond immediately. He looked away for a moment, as if searching through memories that still carried emotion. She watched him closely, waiting for the truth she could sense was coming. He finally exhaled, and his voice lowered slightly, not out of fear but out of honesty. I cared about you because you were important to me, not because of what you did, or how strong you were, or how perfect you were. You mattered to me simply because you were you. Sandra felt her chest tighten at his words. The simplicity of them made her heart ache. She had expected something complicated, something distant, something logical. But the truth was gentle and full of respect. He continued, when a person is important, you do not need a reason to care, you just do. She swallowed, trying to steady her breath, but he was not done. I saw how you walked that night. I saw how your shoulders dropped and how your steps slowed. I knew you were carrying something heavy. I could not let you walk alone like that. I could not let you disappear into the darkness without making sure you were safe. Sandra's eyes softened with emotion. She remembered the darkness of that night, the loneliness she felt, the belief that no one would even notice she was gone. And now she learned that someone had not only noticed but had stayed close enough to protect her without being seen. She whispered, you never told me why you stayed quiet. Keanu nodded slowly. I stayed quiet because I knew you needed to fall apart without feeling judged. I knew you needed space to breathe. Sometimes kindness means standing close enough to protect but far enough to respect. His words sank into her like warmth spreading through cold skin. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting herself feel everything she had buried for years. When she opened them again, she looked at him with new understanding. Keanu, you gave me something that night I did not even know I needed. You gave me safety. He smiled gently, the same soft smile that had greeted her when she first approached the bench. "Everyone deserves to feel safe," he said. Sandra felt her heartbeat change, not heavier this time, calmer, steadier. For the first time in a long time, she felt something returning, something she had lost years ago, a sense of worth, a sense of peace, a sense of connection. But the story was not done. The deeper truth had not yet been revealed. The moment was building toward something bigger, something she did not yet see coming, something he had kept hidden for years. And as she looked into his calm eyes, she realized there was still one more question she needed to ask. "Keanu, what happened after you followed me? You told me you stayed behind me, but what did you do after I disappeared into the night?" He looked at her with quiet seriousness, and this time he did not smile. The moment he stopped smiling, Sandra felt a quiet shift in the air. It was small, but strong enough to make her heart beat a little faster. For the first time since they sat together, she sensed there was something deeper hidden in the silence. Keanu's gentle expressions had always comforted her, but this time his stillness felt different. It carried weight. It held something he had kept inside for a long time. She waited, hoping he would speak first. But Keanu looked out at the pond, his eyes calm yet distant, as if searching for the right place inside his memory to begin. Sandra held her breath without meaning to. She could feel the moment stretching, growing heavier, building into something she did not expect but somehow knew was important. Finally, he turned his head slightly toward her. "That night did not end the way you think," he said softly. Sandra blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" His voice remained gentle, but there was a slow sadness in it that had not appeared earlier. "You disappeared around a narrow street corner. You probably do not remember which one, but I remember every step. You walked fast at first, then slower, and then you stopped near the old fountain in the small courtyard." She frowned a little as she tried to remember. The night had felt blurry back then. She had not been thinking clearly. She had only been trying to escape her own emotions. She barely remembered the fountain. Keanu continued, "You sat down there for a long time. Your hands were shaking. You looked scared. And you looked tired in a way I had never seen before." Sandra lowered her eyes. The memory began to return in small pieces. The cold stone of the fountain, the quiet darkness, the feeling of wanting to hide from the world. The moment she had pressed her hands against her face because she was afraid of losing control. She remembered feeling more alone than she had ever felt. But what she did not remember was anyone near her. She thought she had been invisible. Keanu spoke again, his voice lower now. "I stayed close, but I did not sit beside you. I kept a distance because I did not want you to feel watched, but I never left that courtyard." She swallowed, feeling a warm ache inside her chest. "I never knew," she whispered. "You were not supposed to know," he repeated softly. "I wanted you to have the space to feel whatever you needed to feel without worrying about me, but I also knew you were not safe enough to be alone." She looked at him with a mix of gratitude and guilt. "And after I left the courtyard?" she asked quietly. Keanu paused again. This time the silence was not gentle. It was heavy, full of meaning, full of something she had never guessed. He took a slow breath. "You walked away from the courtyard, and for a moment I thought you were finally going home, but then you stopped at the edge of the street and just stood there. You looked like you did not know where to go next. Your shoulders were shaking. I could tell you were losing strength." Sandra felt her chest tighten again. She did not remember that moment clearly, but she did remember feeling lost. She remembered standing still in the cold air, unsure of whether to go back or continue walking. Keanu continued, "You were not just overwhelmed, you were hurting, you were exhausted. You looked like you were about to fall to your knees, and that is when I stopped staying behind." Her eyes widened slightly. "What do you mean?" Keanu turned to her fully now. His expression was calm but serious. "I stepped forward. I stood closer. I did not touch you. I did not call your name, but I stayed right behind you because I thought you might collapse. I wanted to catch you if you did." Sandra's breath caught. She tried to imagine him standing behind her in the darkness, close enough to catch her but far enough not to startle her. She remembered her knees shaking. She remembered feeling weak. And now she realized why she had not fallen that night. She had somehow felt a presence. She thought it was her imagination, but it had been him. She whispered, "I felt something behind me. I thought I imagined it." Keanu nodded slowly. "It was me. I stayed there until you finally took a steady breath and kept walking. I followed you until I was sure you were safe, and only then did I leave." Sandra covered her hand over her mouth as emotion filled her eyes. She did not cry, but the tears sat quietly behind her lashes. Keanu, why did you never tell me this? Why did you let me believe I was alone when you were right behind me? His voice softened again. Because you were carrying enough pain. You did not need to feel embarrassed or guilty about someone seeing you like that. I wanted you to heal in your own time, not feel like you owed me anything. She looked at him, overwhelmed. I never owed you, but you still cared. I cared because you mattered, he said simply. The words settled between them with quiet strength. The garden felt even more peaceful now, but the emotions inside Sandra were rising. She had spent years believing she had been abandoned, but instead she had been protected, quietly, respectfully, without expectation. She took a slow breath. There is something I need to tell you, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Keanu nodded gently. I am listening. Her fingers tightened around each other. This time, the truth she wanted to reveal was harder, deeper, more personal, something she had never admitted to anyone, not even to herself fully. The reason I walked away that night, she whispered, was not only because I felt unworthy. It was because I was terrified of losing someone I cared about. I thought I could protect myself by leaving first. I thought if I disappeared before you saw how broken I was, it would hurt less. Keanu's eyes softened even more. Sandra, you do not lose people by being honest about your pain. You lose people by believing you must hide it. She bowed her head, feeling the truth of his words. I know that now, but back then I did not. He watched her with calm understanding. You were not weak that night, you were hurting. There is a difference. The weight inside her chest began to shift again. Not heavier, not lighter, just different. The truth had changed everything. But there was still one final revelation waiting to be uncovered. Something she did not know he had held on to for years. Something he was still deciding whether to reveal. And Sandra sensed it. She looked at him carefully. Keanu, is there something else about that night, something you have not told me? He took another slow breath. His eyes lowered for a moment, as if he was preparing himself. Then he looked at her again with a seriousness she had not seen before. Yes, he said quietly, there is something you do not know. The moment he said there was something she did not know, the entire atmosphere shifted again. The garden was still quiet, the sunlight still warm, but Sandra felt as if everything around her had paused. Keanu's voice had not been loud or dramatic, yet there was a weight hidden inside it, a deeper truth that made her heart beat harder. She watched him closely, noticing the way he breathed in slowly as if preparing himself. He was not nervous, but he was thoughtful, careful, almost protective of how the next words might affect her. Sandra felt the tension building inside her chest. She had already learned so much that changed everything she believed, yet she sensed that whatever he was about to reveal would take the story to a place she had never expected. He finally spoke, his voice steady and quiet. After you walked away that night, I did not go home immediately, he said. Sandra frowned a little. What did you do? Keanu looked out at the pond before answering. I stayed in that courtyard long after you left. I stood there thinking about everything I had seen. I kept replaying your expression in my mind. I could not forget how lost you looked. I could not forget how much pain you were carrying. She lowered her head, feeling the weight of her old emotions pressing against her heart again. I did not want anyone to see me like that, she whispered. I know, he replied gently, and I respected that, but I also knew you needed someone to care even if you were not ready to accept it. Sandra felt something warm spreading through her chest, but she still did not understand what he had been hiding all these years. So what was it? She asked softly. What happened after I left? Keanu shifted slightly on the bench, as if deciding how honest he could be without overwhelming her. I followed you only until I knew you were safe, he said. But when I turned around to leave the courtyard, I found something. Sandra raised her eyes slowly. Found something? What do you mean? Keanu took a slow breath. I found your scarf on the ground near the fountain. She blinked, surprised. My scarf, I do not remember losing it. That is because you were not thinking clearly, he said gently. You left it behind when you sat down. I picked it up because I did not want someone else to take it or step on it. A small feeling of embarrassment rose in her chest, but Keanu's calm tone softened it. He continued, I did not want to disturb you, so I did not try to return it that night. I just held on to it. Sandra stared at him. You kept it. Keanu nodded slowly, for weeks. The words hit her unexpectedly. Weeks, she whispered. He looked at the pond again, a quiet memory passing through his eyes. Yes, I kept it because I did not know when I would see you again. I thought maybe one day if we crossed paths, I could give it back to you. She felt her breath catch. She had been lost that night, and yet part of her had remained with him, something she had forgotten, something he had protected. But there was more, she could feel it. Keanu, she whispered, keeping a scarf is not something big enough to make you hesitate like this. There is something else, isn't there? He turned toward her again, and this time his expression was deeper, almost emotional in a calm way. Yes, he said softly, there is more. She waited, her heart beating slowly but heavily. Keanu continued, during those weeks when I kept your scarf, I realized something I had not fully understood before. I realized why I followed you that night. I realized why I felt so protective. I realized why I worried more than I should have. Sandra felt her breath slow. Why? She whispered. He lowered his eyes for a moment, then lifted them again with a softness that made her chest tighten. Because you mattered to me in a way I had never said out loud. I cared about you not just as a friend, not just as someone I respected, but as someone who meant something deeper. Her heartbeat stopped for a moment. Keanu continued, his voice gentle and honest. I did not say anything back then because you were hurting, and I did not want to confuse you or make anything harder for you. But the truth is, I cared about you more than you ever realized. Sandra felt her throat tighten as emotions surfaced inside her. She had always wondered if she meant anything to him. She had always believed she was easily forgotten. She had always convinced herself that she had made no impact. Yet now she discovered that the truth was the complete opposite. She whispered, I never knew. You were not supposed to know, he said softly. Your heart was too fragile that night. You needed space, not pressure. I cared quietly so that you could heal without feeling watched or judged. The words settled deep inside her, warming parts of her heart she had ignored for years. But with the warmth came another emotion she did not expect, guilt. She looked at him with sad eyes. I walked away from you without saying anything. I thought you would forget me. I did not know you were carrying all this. Keanu shook his head gently. You did not have to know. Caring about someone is not something that demands anything in return. A small tear rolled down her cheek, not from sadness, but from the sudden understanding of how much she had misjudged her own worth. She wiped it away quickly, embarrassed, but Keanu pretended not to notice. He always respected her feelings, even in small ways. She whispered, I regret leaving you alone that night. Keanu replied softly, you were not trying to hurt me, you were trying to protect yourself. That is human. There is no shame in that. Sandra looked at him with a growing warmth in her eyes. And you protected me when I could not protect myself. He gave a small, gentle smile. Someone had to. She felt her chest tighten again, but this time the feeling was warm, not painful. She realized something else now, something she had never wanted to admit before, something she had buried for years because she was afraid of what it meant. She looked down at her hands, then slowly raised her eyes to him. Keanu, there is something I never said too. He looked at her carefully. I am listening. Sandra took a slow breath. She had carried this truth quietly for many years, just like he had carried his, and now the moment felt right. I cared about you too, she whispered. Even back then, maybe even longer than I understood. I walked away because I thought I would lose you if you saw how broken I was. Keanu's expression softened even more. You never had to hide from me. She swallowed, trying to steady her emotions. I know that now, but I did not know it back then. He nodded slowly. We were both trying to protect something. You were trying to protect your heart. I was trying to protect you. Sandra felt a quiet warmth spread through her entire body. The truth had changed the way she saw everything. The past no longer felt like a mistake. It felt like a moment where two people were hurting quietly, both caring, both afraid, both trying to understand themselves. She looked at him again and said softly, so this is why your smile felt different today. He nodded gently. I wanted you to know that our past was not broken, it was just unfinished. The words wrapped around her like soft light. But the story was not done. Sandra felt a question rising inside her, one that could change everything. She looked at him carefully. Keanu, After all these years, after all the distance, after everything we never said, why are you telling me all this now?" He looked at her with calm, honest eyes. And then he spoke the line that would lead into the final reveal. "Because you are finally ready to hear what comes next." The moment he said she was finally ready, Sandra felt her breath pause in her chest. There was something in his voice that carried both gentleness and truth, something that made her heart beat slower and heavier at the same time. She looked at him, waiting, unsure if she was prepared for what he was about to say, yet knowing she needed to hear it. The garden around them grew quieter, as if the world itself wanted to listen. The soft sound of water touching the surface of the pond, the distant rustle of leaves, the warm sunlight on their shoulders, everything felt perfectly still. Sandra slowly placed her hands together in her lap as she whispered, "What comes next?" Keanu took a slow breath as he looked at her, his eyes calm and steady. "I am telling you everything now," he said softly, "because this is the first time I have seen you sit in front of me without trying to hide your pain. You are not running, you are not pretending, you are not shrinking away from yourself anymore. This time you are present." She felt her throat tighten, her eyes softened. "I am trying," she whispered. "You are doing more than trying," he replied. "You are healing." Sandra let the silence settle for a moment. His words felt like warm light touching the parts of her heart she had kept closed for years. She looked at him quietly, waiting for him to continue. Keanu's voice lowered slightly. "There is something about that night I never told you. Something I carried all this time, not because I wanted to hide it, but because I did not want to confuse you or hurt you. Back then, you were fragile, and I wanted to protect your heart as much as I wanted to protect you." Sandra leaned in a little, her eyebrows lifting slightly. "What was it?" He looked down for a moment, then lifted his eyes again with a softness that made her chest tighten. "The truth is, the reason I followed you that night was not only because I cared about you. It was because I knew I was losing someone who mattered deeply to me, and I did not know how to accept that." Her breath caught in her throat. She felt her fingers curl slightly on her lap. "Losing me?" she whispered. Keanu nodded gently. "I knew you were pulling away from everyone. I saw how tired you were, how overwhelmed you were. I saw how you were blaming yourself for things you could not control. And I knew if I did not stay close, even silently, I might never see you again." Sandra felt a soft wave of warmth move through her body. She had always believed she was invisible in her pain. But now she understood that he had seen her more clearly than anyone else ever had. He continued, "I followed you because I cared, but I stayed because I could not imagine a world where you disappeared from it." Her eyes filled with emotion, but the tears did not fall. They settled quietly, held back by the strength she was finally finding again. She whispered, "Keanu, I never knew how much I meant to you." He gave a small, peaceful smile. "I never showed it, not fully. I was careful, too careful, maybe. I thought if I kept my feelings quiet, it would protect you. But maybe it only added to the distance between us." She gently shook her head. "You did not push me, you did not pressure me, you gave me space. That was kindness, not distance." He listened to her words with quiet gratitude. Then he spoke again. "There is one more thing I need to tell you, and it is the real reason I smiled when you brought up our past today." Sandra's heart began to thump a little faster. "What is it?" she asked softly. Keanu breathed out slowly, as if releasing a truth he had held inside for years. "I smiled because I realized something the moment you walked toward me today. I realized you were not the same person who walked away that night. You are stronger now. You are calmer. You are softer with yourself, and you finally allowed yourself to sit beside me again without fear." His words landed with deep meaning. Sandra felt something shift inside her, something she had not sensed in a long time. She did not feel the old pain anymore. She felt something else: forgiveness, understanding, and quiet hope. Keanu leaned back slightly on the bench, his eyes gentle and clear. "And when you asked if I remembered our past," he continued, "I smiled because I wanted you to know that your past does not scare me. Not then, not now, not ever." Sandra held her breath, absorbing the words slowly. They felt like warmth pouring into her chest, filling the places she once thought were empty forever. He went on, "I smiled because I wanted to show you that nothing about that night made me think less of you. It only made me care about you more." Sandra felt her heart soften in a way she did not expect. For a moment she could not speak. The truth was too big, too gentle, too healing for her to process all at once. She finally whispered, So all this time, your silence was not distance, it was love. Keanu's eyes softened even more. It was respect, he said. Love cannot exist without respect, and I respected your space, your heart, your pain, and your journey. She looked at him closely, and for the first time in many years, she saw not the man she had once walked away from, but the man who had quietly stood behind her when she was at her lowest, who had kept her safe, who had carried her lost scarf, who had remembered her without expecting anything back. She felt her voice tremble as she spoke. I wish I had known all this sooner. You were not ready sooner, he said softly, and neither was I. The truth of those words settled over them like warm sunlight. It felt right. It felt honest. It felt like two lives finally meeting at the same moment with the same clarity. Sandra looked at the pond, then back at him. So where do we go from here? She asked quietly. Keanu smiled, not the small, polite smile, not the gentle, reassuring one, but a deeper smile, soft and warm, carrying both hope and peace. We go forward, he said, without fear of the past, without running, without silence between us. We go forward together in whatever way feels right for both of us. Sandra felt her chest open with a feeling she had not experienced in years. Calm, safety, belonging. She realized she had been waiting for this without knowing it. She whispered, "Thank you for not leaving me alone that night." Keanu shook his head softly. I never left you then, and I am not leaving you now. Sandra smiled, a slow and genuine smile that reached her eyes. She felt lighter, as if a part of her soul had finally come home. And as they sat together in the warm light of the garden, Sandra understood the true meaning behind the title her life had just written. She brought up their past, and his gentle smile said everything. The story ends not with grand gestures, not with dramatic scenes, but with two hearts finally meeting in truth, in kindness, and in respect, exactly where they were always meant to meet.